You finished your residency. How did it go for you?
After residency, I started doing 1099 contracting. And as a travel doctor, you make more than a staff doctor. And my mom, she was a single mom, a nurse. So she worked a lot. I mean, she had like 3 nursing jobs. My first job wasn't really till I was a doctor. So literally my first contract, I was making $50,000 a month. No, literally, you go from making $50,000 a year and now I'm getting $50,000 a month. You're like, oh my God.
What is up, guys? Jason here. Welcome back to the channel and our series, Nurses to Riches, The Road to Fire. Today's guest is a doctor who skipped the full-time hospital job, went straight into 1099 work, and made $50,000 in a single month, less than 2 years out of residency. She has $425,000 in student loans. She trained in the Caribbean, and instead of waiting around for a perfect job offer, she figured it out herself. She cold called hospitals, built her own schedule, and turned down 2 contracts that were flat out unsafe. We're getting into all of it. How she handles debt, why she pays $15 a month on her student loans, the business moves she's making, and how she's creating more freedom than most doctors even think is possible. All right, tell us who you are and what it is that you currently do for a living.
So my name is AWODIYA. I'm an internal medicine, hospital medicine doctor, and I'm a travel doctor. So I pick up 1099 contracts in different cities. And since I finished my residency 1.5 years, I've worked in five hospitals in 4 different states.
Wow, so you just finished recently then?
Yeah, I just finished recently and I went
Amazing.
straight into 1099 contracting.
Wow, that's wild. But okay, so I want you to let me know, where did you grow up, and first of all, like, what was money like for you and your family when you were growing up as a kid?
So I grew up in the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia. And my mom, she was a single mom, a nurse. So she worked a lot. I mean, she had like 3 nursing jobs. So she was working constantly as a foreigner. So money was never an issue growing up. I would say I was a very spoiled child because even when I went to college, my mom gave me her credit card and she was like, well, you don't have to work, just focus on school. So we grew up in a nice home. Money was never an issue. So I didn't get my first job wasn't really till I was a doctor. So yeah.
I love that though. Don't you just wish every parent could do that for their kids?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I have
Mhm.
a coworker. She's actually the co-founder of a company I'm trying to build, and she's very good with her finances. But when she was in nursing school, she was able to basically go to school, not have to pay a dime because her parents allowed her to live in their house. They paid for
Mhm.
her tuition, and then when she graduated, she worked as a nurse, and she was still living at home because her parents said, "If you want to buy a house, stay in our house. Don't pay
Mhm.
any rent and save all the money you can." And she used
Mhm.
that income to just buy her first property in
Right.
cash.
Mhm.
So now she's completely debt free. Like, she owns her own home, she doesn't have any debt, and she's
Mhm.
got like a huge investment portfolio. So
Yeah.
that's,
Mhm. I just
man.
moved out my parents' house at 30. I was living there for
Right.
free. I paid my first rent when I was 30 years old.
You know what? But at least you were in a financial position at that point to be able to afford the rent, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so why did you want to become a doctor in the first place?
So I feel like growing up in a foreign household, my mom, like, and she was in the nursing field, she always like wanted me to become a doctor, if I'm honest. And I was always good in school. Like I loved science, I loved math. And I was 21 when I went in. So I went to med school early at 21, straight out of college. So it just happened for me. I just went in and I'm good at it. And yeah, it just happened naturally. At 21, you don't really
So
know what you want to do. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Do you have any siblings?
I have 2 brothers. I have a younger brother and an older brother.
And are they both in healthcare?
Well, one of them was in medical school, but he dropped out. And now he does like AI and taxes. He did not want to become a doctor. I think he felt the pressure from being Nigerian to be a doctor. So he ended up dropping out, you know,
Yeah.
which is actually a
Yeah. And
scary thing, but it's working out for him.
yeah, and we're gonna get into AI later because I think that's an interesting topic to talk about. So
Yeah.
I like that you brought it up. But Besides, like your mother, did anybody influence you growing up, to go into medicine?
No, it was just my mom. That's the only one I really knew in medicine. Yeah.
Mm.
Mhm.
Did anybody talk to you about how much med school was actually going to cost you before you went?
No, no, and
No.
that's something I wish I known going in was like right now I'm like 500,000, you finish $500,000 in debt. So
Yeah.
you're going in at 21, you're taking out loans. Like a lot of people that go to college early, you don't know anything. So you take out that much money and then you're going in so much debt. And then interest is accumulating, everything's accumulating, and then you get out and you're trying to pay back these loans, but the interest is on and everything. So that was something I was not educated about. I feel like when I first got in, my mom told me, "Oh, you're going to become a doctor, you'll be able to pay it back." And that really depends on the amount of loans you have. Like some people, they finish with $200,000 loan, $150,000 loan. That's easier for you to pay back. But if you're sitting close to half a million, it takes a lot. I mean, it's definitely possible, but you're gonna have to work a lot to pay it.
Yeah, the
Because you're gonna
orthopedic surgeon that I interviewed, he owed just about the same amount. But obviously, orthopedic surgeons, they make a lot of money, right? I think now he's like, because he's a partner in a practice that he started with some other doctors, some
Mhm,
orthopedic surgeons, and he's making well over $1 million a year, I think, at this point. So his goal after graduating, and mind you, he was an LPN before he became an orthopedic surgeon.
oh,
So
wow.
he was practicing as a nurse. And when he graduated, got his license and started practicing as a doctor,
Mm,
his goal was to pay off his $500,000 of debt in like two
mhm,
years.
mhm,
Then COVID came and his practice kind of suffered a bit. And it
mm.
took him a little bit longer, but literally within 1 year, he was able to pay off, I think it was like $200,000,
Yeah,
if not
mhm,
more.
yeah,
Just the amount of money that these orthopedic surgeons make is it's insane. I mean, they deserve it. Obviously, all you
yeah,
doctors deserve it, I think, in my opinion.
mhm.
So when you started taking out these loans, did you think about um, the amount of money that you had to actually take? Did that bother you in any way?
I didn't, you're young. You're like, okay, well,
Mhm.
I'm just take out the money. This is normal. You're told that doctors are going to make enough to pay it back. So
Right.
you're just kind of doing what you're told. You're not really as educated. Like if I went to med school now at 30, I would have had a different mindset because I'm 31 now. But at 21, I didn't know anything. I was just doing what I was told, which was take money out and pay off debt. And I'm coming from a parent my mom came from Nigeria and then had us. So she didn't understand either about loans that like to her it was an opportunity because in Nigeria you didn't have the opportunity to take out loans to go to school to afford an
Yeah.
education. You had to come from a wealthy family. So she saw it as okay, well, we didn't have this at home, back home in Nigeria, and this is the best way. So
Mm. And go walk me through your trajectory. Like, what schools did you go to, and how did your educational career unfold? Like, what did you do to get to where you are?
so I first it started in high school. So I had a half a day in high school my senior year, and you can start college credits in high school. So I did 1 year at a community college. So I had a half a day. By 12 o'clock, I was in the community college doing calculus, doing chemistry, doing like the basic classes of a biology major. So by the time I finished high school, I already had 30 credits. And then I did a second year in community college, and then I transferred to a 4 year college, University of Maryland, but I only did 2 years there. So I went to University of Maryland, graduated there, and went straight to a medical school. Now I went to a Caribbean medical school at the time, which was Ross University, which is in
Mhm.
Dominica.
Wow.
And then I did that. And I liked the Caribbean school route because it was very, very flexible, how you can schedule time off. So I did 16 months there, and then I came to Maryland and did clinical rotations. And then I took a year off between medical school and residency. And I was doing a bunch of other stuff that was not medically relevant. I went to bartending school and did a lot of fun stuff. I'm still young. I'm like, I don't want to do anything medically relevant. I'm going to be doing that in my future. So interviewed for residencies and got into internal medicine.
Mhm.
Did a 3 year internal medicine residency and mashed into a fellow. I actually mashed into a fellowship, but I changed my mind and I dropped out of it, and I've been a travel doctor ever since.
Wow. Really? So what fellowship did you match into? And also,
Endocrinology.
for people who are watching this, and I get a lot of viewers who are not even in healthcare, can you explain
Mhm.
to them what a fellowship is?
So a fellowship is when you do like it's when you specialize even more. So if you do internal medicine, you're general, you do everything. When you do a fellowship, you're specializing in one thing. Now there are a couple of reasons why people do fellowship. The first reason is so they can focus on one body part. So if you become a cardiologist, you're only focusing on the heart. If you become a gastroenterologist, you're focusing on the GI system. So some people like to focus on one thing because when you're internal, you got to know everything. But of course, you can always consult if you don't. And some people do it for the money, like cardiologist, GI. They make more money, prestige, more prestigious
Mhm.
than internal medicine. So, yeah.
Awesome. And okay, so you told me that you ended up going to the Caribbean. Why did you make the choice to go to the Caribbean to get your degree?
So at the time, my brother was there. So that's
Mhm.
really much why I went. He was there. So, I had a family member who went to the school, but he didn't finish. Ended up dropping out. But I went there, and going to Caribbean school is definitely easier than going to school in the US. But when it comes to like specialties and matching into specialties, it can be really become really competitive, because much of the competitive specialties like orthopedic surgery, plastics, dermatology, they usually take U.S. graduates. So if you go to a Caribbean school, um, a lot of people in Caribbean medical schools, they end up matching family and internal medicine, because those are less competitive specialties.
I see. And when you say matching, can you just clarify what you mean by that?
So when you are applying for a residency spot, position, it's not like you're just applying for a job and then you get to pick. So basically, you go to different interviews and then you put it into a system and you rank your programs. And then the programs also rank their candidates. And then they basically put you in a system and you match into the program. And they do that basically to make sure spots don't go unfilled. Like, so people are like, oh, I don't want to pick to go in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. Like people, these spots are actually filling. So it's a way to force doctors into these locations without giving them the option.
Wow. Yeah. I watch all these TikTok videos and it's usually around, I think like June-ish, like May, June, where
Yeah.
everybody's matching into their professions. I mean, into their
Mhm.
specialties. And it's like, I'm not a doctor, but I love watching those videos because I see these people, they get so excited and they've worked all their lives for this and they finally get to match and I love it. I love seeing it.
Yeah.
But when you matched for this specific specialty, what specialty was it?
Internal medicine. So I applied to psychiatry and then internal medicine. So I ranked psychiatry first, internal medicine. I got my fourth choice. So I was in between psychiatry and internal medicine. You can rank as many different specialties as you want.
Mm. And so you can select as many as you want, but it's up to
Yeah.
them to decide which
Yeah,
candidates they want to choose for specific
the
specialties.
system decides.
Interesting. Yeah. So you could just end up getting selected for a random hospital in the Midwest, even though you don't really want to go there. You choose it
Yeah,
because it's
and that's
probably one of the only few.
or program that you don't want. And it's so crazy because the match is every year. So if you go unmatched, the idea of waiting a whole year is dreading to a lot of doctors. So
Um,
a lot of doctors end up settling, right? Because they match into these programs, they're not really happy, or specialty they're not happy with. I was actually having lunch the other day and there was a party behind me celebrating and they was like, congratulations, doctor. And I was like, oh, what type of doctor are you? And he was like really scared to tell me. And it didn't seem like he was comfortable. And then he finally said internal medicine. And he was like, oh, internal medicine, people think it's low and it's not good. And I was like, for you to speak about your specialty like that, like it shows that that's probably not what you wanted. You just did it because that's probably what was available. So, I think a lot of doctors end up getting spots they don't really want because of the system. The
yeah.
system just throws you in there. Yeah.
Wow. And okay, so you ended up choosing internal medicine and
hmm
not psychiatry. Why internal medicine instead of psychiatry?
I've ranked both. So the system put me in internal medicine. I wanted psychiatry, but I didn't get it. I liked both. I just didn't know what to pick, so I let the system pick for me because I
I
got
see.
my fourth choice. Psych was like number one, but the system put me on internal medicine.
Oh, okay. And where did you end up matching? Like which
Um,
location?
University of Maryland Capital. So I was actually living at home and doing residency, 10 minutes from my house.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Wow, so you just rolled out of bed and
Yeah,
there
I
you
didn't
are
have
at
to
work.
move or anything. I was in my home, my own neighborhood.
That's awesome. Actually, that's a better situation than most residents. Like I've known residents who ended up matching because I worked in New York as a nurse when I first graduated. And I worked with a lot of residents who came from other parts like North Carolina, Florida, and ended up in New York where the cost of living is ridiculous. So like they're spending
Mm,
so much money on housing, and residents, as you know, don't get paid what what they should be what they deserve to get paid because they work long hours, right? So we'll get into that. I want to know how many hours you were working per week, and
mm,
then in addition to that, it's an extremely stressful job. Before you actually get to work with your license and earn the
mm.
money that you would really deserve to earn as a doctor. So tell me, how many hours a week were you actually putting in when you were working as a resident?
Like 80 hours a week and making what, $3,000 a month after taxes. So
Wow.
like you were making like $50,000 a year. And that's why I appreciated staying home because I'm like, yo, like an apartment
Yeah.
was probably like 1,500 around there. So residents don't even make that much money. And it's really sad. I think they should be making more.
Mm.
But that's how the system residency, I feel like, is an outdated system. It's been like this since the 90s, 80s, and it hasn't really progressed. It's the same. The only thing that's changed is the hour restriction. So they restricted to 80 hours a week and they still cap out on that. Before
Yeah.
residents worked unlimited. They used to do 24-hour shifts, 36-hour shifts, but they changed it. But that's the only thing they changed. They didn't change the pay.
Oh,
So,
yeah. And you guys don't have unions. Like nurses do have unions. That's a huge difference. Um, it's hard for you guys to get unions, I've heard, right? Because like it's frowned upon, isn't it? Like in your industry, for
yeah.
doctors to try to like,
Mhm.
yeah.
And doctors are very competitive against each other. So it's like, it's really hard. I don't really see unions as much amongst us.
Mhm.
A lot of, we've been programmed and brainwashed to just accept whatever and to be afraid to speak up, to be afraid to stand up for ourselves. Like residency for a lot of people was very traumatizing because you had no power. You were powerless. You couldn't just leave. Like as a nurse, if you don't like your job, you could just go leave somewhere else. But in residency, you can't leave. Like you be out of a residency spot and it doesn't look good on your application. So a lot of people felt powerless. So people who've already been brainwashed and conditioned to feel that way, it would be hard to like form unions, you know.
Yeah. And I know how it works for in the ER when a resident is going through their residency because
Mhm.
they're basically there with the doctors, the attending physician, the whole way through. But how does it work in internal medicine?
It's the same way. Whenever you do a residency, you have to have a physician on top of you doing like monitoring everything you're doing and co-signing orders.
And can you go over some of the things that you did as a resident and start from like year one all the way through year four? Was it 3 years or 4 years?
3 years.
Okay, so go from year one to year three, and how was the experience, especially as a new resident? Because like you're just coming in, that must have been scary at first. So like,
Mhm.
go through that experience.
So the residency program I mentioned, I actually did a lot of my rotations there. So I was very familiar with the hospital, the staff. Like I said, I grew up in this area, so I was familiar with the area. So there wasn't a lot of adjusting. I would say like first year, I felt supported by my seniors because you have a third year resident that monitors you and makes sure you're doing well. So I felt really good. My first year going in, I felt very confident with the medicine and studying, and I felt supported. It was very inpatient heavy. So your first year, you don't do a lot of electives. It's mainly like the floors, like med surge. You're doing a lot of med surge and ICU. ICU was like I didn't really like ICU. It was like very complicated, and I was always scared to be because we had some days where we had to be there by ourselves at night. I'm like, this is so
Oh,
uncomfortable. I don't know how to run codes. I don't know how to do this. So, but I felt supported. It was pretty good. And then I'm starting during the pandemic, right? So I'm starting in
Oh,
2020, right when the pandemic started. So it was a different time period. It was very, very stressful. Patients were very sick. Everyone had COVID. People were dying left and right. So it was a lot. It was definitely a lot the first year. And then the second year, we moved to they built a new hospital. We moved there and we had more electives to do, so it was a little more flexible with the schedule. And then third year you have majority electives, like subspecialties like cardiology, GI, infectious disease, and you do like a month of each block. And then we had like 3 months inpatient rotation. So that was how our schedule was.
and do you think med school prepared you well for residency?
I think so. I think so. I feel like
Mm,
a lot of stuff you learn in med school, you're not going to really see. Like, we learn a lot of rare disease in med school that you're probably never going to see in your career.
mm,
Um, you see a lot of bread and butter as an internal medicine doctor. I mean, you see CHF exacerbation, COPD, heart attacks, strokes. So these are like the main things, the really, really rare things that we learned about. You don't really
mm.
see these things as much. So
I see. And while you were going through medical school or even residency, did anybody talk to you about money, like their finances or what you could expect to make, how much debt you can expect to go into, and all these things? Did anybody speak to you about that at all?
nope.
It
Mm-mm.
was not even part of the curriculum or anything.
No one spoke about it in residency. What they did the
Mm,
last day of residency, they brought a financial advisor in to come speak
mm,
to us third years. That's it.
mm,
Other than that, we didn't really understand finances. We didn't understand
mm,
money. I had to learn on my own about money and how it worked when I became a
mm,
1099 travel doctor, because you have no choice. You have to learn
mm,
at this point because you're getting in all this money. And then it's not like they take the taxes, that you have to pay your taxes, manage
yeah.
everything. So it
Yeah,
was
tell me
scary.
about it. You tell me about it. I interviewed a nurse who during COVID, you know how these nurses were making, I don't know, I think like 10,000 a week or something like that.
Yeah, they're making a
Some
lot of
even
money.
more. Yeah. And one nurse that I interviewed, she made well over like half a million that year, and she was a 1099 employee. She didn't know
Mhm.
that was her first year. She didn't know she had to pay taxes.
Oh,
So just
wow.
imagine what her tax bill was next year. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say you finished your residency. I want to know,
Mhm.
what was the first big money decision that you made after your residency, and like how did it go for you?
I mean, I think during residency, I bought a car, a
Okay.
Mercedes Benz, a $50,000 car. As a like, I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I bought a $50,000 car when I should have bought a house with that money.
Mm,
Got
yeah.
bought a rental property because houses were cheap during the pandemics.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't know. I was trying to, as a doctor, sometimes we have this I deserve mindset. Like, I deserve, right? Like, I deserve to get this car. I worked hard. I deserve this. And it's costly to have that mindset. So I got myself a Mercedes during residency. And I was paying that off, and I'm still paying it off now. But
Mm,
after residency, I started doing 1099 contracting. And as a travel
mm,
doctor, you make more than a staff doctor.
mm.
So literally my first contract, I was making $50,000 a month. So
Wow.
you go from making 50, no, literally, you go from making $50,000 a year, and now
Yeah.
I'm getting $50,000 a month. You're like, "Oh my God." Like,
Shit.
you're like, "What do I do with this money?" Like, what?
Mm.
Like, you're shocked, because it's like not like
Yeah. So I'm wondering, before you became a 1099 employee, did you
Mhm.
have a job as a W-2 employee?
Nope, nope. I
No.
just went straight
Okay.
in blind.
Okay, so let's walk through this because that to me is extremely shocking. You had no idea what you were really going to expect. Nobody
Nope.
really spoke to you about being a 1099 employee, and you kind of went through the process yourself of figuring it out. So, why did you choose to become a 1099 employee in the first place?
Okay, so to backtrack, I knew a guy, he worked during the COVID pandemic. And during the COVID pandemic, doctors were making like 100K a month or more. So this guy he was working during the pandemic. He was pulling in 100K. And I seen the lifestyle he built for himself. He bought all these properties. He built doctors' offices. He started his own water company. I'm like, this is the type of doctor I want to be like. Like, I want to create this life. And then at that point, after the pandemic, he was working because he felt like it, probably like twice a month. So I'm looking at that. And I'm like, that's beautiful that he did that. I'm inspired. I want to do that too. So that was my first reason of why I wanted to go in. I just felt very inspired that you can have that freedom and flexibility to build a life outside of medicine. And then I didn't want to sign any job full time. Like, I did not want to sign anywhere full time. I feel like being trapped in the hospital for 3 years was like not what I wanted after. So I said, okay, well, my goal is to pick up 1099 contracts locally and near my house in Maryland and just work at different hospitals. And then from there, decide where I want to work. So I just literally just went in because I just didn't want to sign anything like full time. And I wanted the scalability of a 1099 doctor.
Mhm. I see. Okay, so when you started thinking about this and you knew that at that point you wanted to do what he was doing and become a 1099 employee, what
Mhm.
steps did you take to become that 1099 employee?
First, I got my license. I got my Maryland license first, and then I started talking to different recruiters. Like I said, I didn't really know much. He didn't really tell me much about anything either. I just saw the results of what he had. So I started talking to different recruiters, and I didn't really understand the rates. I didn't understand how much. I'm going in blindly. I no mentorship, so I'm just talking to recruiters, and it was a hard time because I dropped out of fellowship April 2023, and I started looking for contracts in May after I got my license. And it was really hard because a lot of these hospitals, they want you to have experience. I was getting ghosted by companies. It was a really hard time. I heard a lot of no's, and I'm sitting there like, okay. So I finished my residency June 2023. I'm still looking for contracts. A lot of
Mhm.
no's, a lot of being led on. One company offered me a contract, they changed their mind. July came,
Wow.
no contracts. Like, I'm literally sitting out. Now my mom's helping me pay some bills. Luckily, I had a savings account during residency, but she was helping me take care of like my car note and certain things. And then August came around, no contract. It was like, because if you want to start working at a hospital, it takes sometimes up to 90 days to get credentials. So I'm already in August and calculating, oh, I probably won't start working till December. But I kept that faith. I knew this was for me. And then my dream contract came, and that's when my life changed. So it came out of nowhere, literally, like when I was least
Mm.
expecting it. So I waited 5 months, and it took one day for that one contract to come.
Mm. And do you think it took longer because you were a 1099 employee and not wanting to go into that W-2 role?
Yeah. It's
Mm.
definitely frowned upon for physicians to go into 1099 right outside of residency because it's more expensive. They want doctors to do 10 W2. That's how they control you and keep you in. A 1099 employee is not consistent. They can leave anytime. So it's not really like, even my own program, they weren't really supporting the decision. So
Mm. And I'm trying to figure out because I guess you can relate it to for us in our field, right? It's as if a nurse went straight out of graduating, getting her license, and then became a 1099 or travel nurse.
yeah.
It's also frowned upon in our,
Yeah.
field, in our profession, where we would want a nurse to get experience as a W-2 employee and be with the same organization for at least a year or two
Yeah.
before they go into 1099. Is that similar to what's going on with you guys in the medical field?
Yeah, it's they want you to get some experience first. But I'm like, residency was experience. You're telling me I went through 3 years making $50,000 and y'all telling me that's not experience. So they definitely want you to do that, you know.
You
And a
know,
lot of the times when you do a residency, they want to sign you there. So their goal
mm,
is to keep their doctors there. And I think my
mm,
program, they offered me a contract and I said no. And
mm,
I think that's another thing. Like, they want to keep you there. They don't want you to be going out traveling. Like, they trained you there. They want you to
yeah.
stay.
No, that and you know what? Your the logic that you just gave me makes more sense for physicians because you
Mhm.
guys do go through 3 years of residency. That's literally like having a job and you guys are getting paid basically minimum wage to do that job for 3
Little
years at least.
bit.
Whereas nurses, they graduate and then when they start working, that's basically they don't have a residency in between, right? We
Mhm.
don't do that. We do our
Mhm.
nursing school, we have clinical rotations in nursing school, but it's nothing to the amount of what you guys have to go through in your training. So, I
Exactly.
mean, if you want to go into 1099 as a physician, it just makes more sense to me than if somebody wants to do it as a nurse. Um,
Yeah. It makes sense. And even I tell doctors this, I say, you don't know what the world is like,
mm,
right? Like you're basing your career profession off of your residency experience. You need to get out in that world and work in as many hospitals you can in your first 1 to 2 years and work in
mm,
as many because then you'll figure out what you like. You'll know when you're being abused. You know when you're taken advantage of. You know where you even if you want to do 1099 and do full time, you will know where you feel safe and which hospitals for you versus just signing blindly at any random hospital. But people do it, it's stability, student loan repayments, different types
mm,
of things. So
yeah. And did anything surprise you about how much or how little doctors actually make or take
it's
home?
yeah, it's surprising because doctors were taxed high. Like one
Mm.
of my friends, she just paid $70,000 in taxes and she made 250 or something. That's a lot.
Mm.
And we're not even educated. Like I work with a tax strategist. We're not even educated that we should be working with a tax strategist. Because when you work with a tax strategist, they teach you strategies on how to get your loans lowered. Like my first year, I paid $30,000 in taxes, $35,000 in taxes.
Oh, wow.
So that was yeah.
That's because also you're a 1099 employee, you can write off a lot of things that a W-2
You
employee
can
cannot.
Yeah, but even as a 1099 doctor, you
Mm.
have to know what can be written off, because
Absolutely.
they pay for they like for nurses, they give them stipends. For doctors, we don't get stipends. They pay for your whole travel. So you can't even write off any of that.
Mhm.
So you have to get into other things that can get your taxes down.
I see. And then, so when it comes to um, billing the employer, do they handle that on their end or do you bill them directly?
They handled it on their end.
Oh,
You
okay.
get an
That's pretty cool.
hourly. You get an
Mm.
hourly. So you just
So,
come in, you do hourly, and then
so do you are there agencies that connect physicians with doctors? I mean, with the
yeah.
hospital,
Mhm.
or is it independent? Like, can you just do it independently?
You could do it independently. I tell people to try independently. Um, locally, like near your house. And I tell doctors, let the hospitals near you know that you exist, right? Let them know you're 1099, you're available. If someone calls out sick, if you need coverage, I'm here. I live 10 minutes away, 20 minutes away. So just calling your local hospital, talking to the HR department there, the medical director there, and just letting them know you exist. That way, if they need someone, they're not calling a local agency that's going to take a cut, they're calling you directly. And then you could just
Mm,
negotiate your terms. But I went through a
mm,
locum agency when I first started. So I went through an agent, and they take a cut of your money. Some companies are worse than others. There are over 100 companies to work
mm,
with. You just have to find the one that aligns with you.
mm. And why did you decide to do it on your own and just reach out to the HR departments yourself? Was that something you figured out after and you realized how much you were losing out on by going through the agency?
So when I started looking at hospitals locally, and I started
Mm,
calling directly, and nothing. They didn't have any availability. So then I worked with the agency for my first contract.
mm, okay. And how did you find this agency?
Oh, different websites, Doc Cafe, Practice Link, Indeed, LinkedIn. There are so
Mm,
many. Some of them find you because once you start putting your name out there in the
yeah.
databases, and they start reaching out to you and they call you. Even though the company I work with now, I've never even heard of them, and they reached out to
Mm,
me, and I'm working with them. So there are so many
interesting.
agencies out here.
Yeah. And have you ever considered just starting your own agency?
I considered it,
Mhm,
because I love helping people, and I love helping people like find jobs, and I believe physicians should be compensated more
mhm,
than
mhm,
what these agencies are. I thought about it. Maybe something in the future I'll think about doing.
mhm, mhm. And okay, so you told me you ended up borrowing close to 500K, if not more, I'm guessing. So
The
how
I
much
think
did you,
4.
425. You know, that's the part nobody talks about. That's actually one of the reasons we're building this app called Map My Pay. We keep seeing nurses move across the country for what looked like a big paycheck and a big pay bump. But when you factor in housing, taxes, cost of living, it's like they're actually worse off. So we're building this app where you can compare cities side by side and see what your paycheck's actually worth after all of that. It's mainly for nurses, nursing assistants, licensed practical nurses, nurse practitioners, registered nurses, midwives, CRNAs, nursing professors and instructors, and nurse managers. But it works for anyone outside of the nursing industry who's looking into these areas and wondering, should I stay where I'm at or take an offer in another city? Anyway, it's not live yet, but if anyone watching wants to try it out early, you can join the waitlist at mapmypay.com and I'll let you know as soon as it drops. Okay, back to the story. And what does your monthly payment look like on something like that? Because I'm guessing the interest rates are probably pretty high.
Okay, so right now I think I'm paying about $15 a month. And
Wait, $15?
yeah. Okay, so when you are a 1099 doctor, you are able to get your taxable income lowered, right? So the income reported that you really make, you could make $400,000. But if you get your taxes lowered, it could look like you make less money, right? Because you operate like a business entity. So that's how I work. I work under a business LLC. So after I do my tax write-offs and everything, my income looks lower. So I pay. So I'm on an income driven repayment plan. I'm not on a student loan forgiveness plan as a 1099. So
Yeah.
I'm able to get my taxes down. That looks like I make less money. And it has some pros and cons because, like, when it's
Mhm.
time to buy a home or something like that, like the traditional way to get an FHA loan, if
Yeah.
your money looks less, they're not going to qualify. But that's why you plan each year with your tax advisor and you
Mhm.
know your goals ahead of time. But I was
Yeah.
able to get my payments lowered.
Mm. And you mean so you you're writing off a lot of things, right? Because you're spending money for your business, right? To
Hmm.
operate your business, is operating income or expenses, which reduce your overall income or your
Hmm.
profit, the profit of your company. So at the
Yes.
end of the year, it may look like instead of, let's say, making, I don't know, $500,000, you're
Hmm.
actually making something like, I don't know, 20, $50,000 because you've spent
Exactly.
so much money just to operate this business.
Exactly. Exactly.
I see. I see. And what, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of expenses as a 1099 physician are you able to write off?
So first thing is real estate. I was able
Mm,
to get an Airbnb in Nigeria. So my first year, I was able to write that off, and you could definitely write off international properties. Real estate, I tell every doctor because you're making so much as a 1099 as a doctor, real estate is gonna get those taxes down. It's not gonna be the little meals you eat through the day. That's not gonna
mm,
really get it down. It's getting into real estate and buying properties. So that's what I'm doing, and you build wealth and you save money on student loans. It's an amazing strategy. So I feel like
mm,
real estate, but you could write off anything like your trips. Like you have to have a business. Like I have multiple businesses. So for example, I was just in Houston. I finished my contract, and that company stopped playing, but because of my other business that I have, and I was promoting that, I was able to write off my extra day there. So I write off my trips, food. If I have a car, if I bought a car, put that under my business. I'm not buying another car. I have my car ready. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting how having multiple businesses is such a benefit because
Oh, it
right now
is.
I have my Nurses to Riches LLC, which is my YouTube channel, all my social media stuff. But now I'm working on developing an app. It's called like Map My Pay, and that
Mm-hmm.
one is also for nurses, but I'm going to expand it to more healthcare workers. And what that
Hmm.
app is going to do is basically, let's say you live in Maryland and you're trying to figure out if living in Maryland I'm going to use nursing as an example. As a nurse,
Hmm.
does it make sense for you to work and live there? Because at the end of the day, let's say you're bringing home $200,000 a year instead of what you could be bringing home in another city or state in the US. So like, let's say you go to San Francisco. In San Francisco, they may pay you a lot more, um, and you can compare your current city to another city in the US to find out how much more you actually end up with after taxes, after the cost of housing, or after the cost of rent.
Mhm.
And that's what the app is aiming to do, right? So, but for nurses at the moment. And what I've noticed is that I can do all my marketing through the Nurses to Riches brand for the Map My Pay app. And
Mhm.
I can also pay Nurses to Riches from Map My Pay, right? So that could be my salary from Map My Pay, which is a completely different LLC, just
Mhm.
to promote the Map My Pay app.
Yeah.
It's wild how
No,
like
it's
intricate.
crazy the stuff that you could do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like I. This is why I always tell people, not just nurses, but people in general, if they want to maximize their tax savings, they should consider starting a business.
Yeah, just start a business because even
Yeah,
if it's like it doesn't even have to because people think starting a business means putting in 50,000. You don't have to put in even a
yeah,
simple business. You start that. You like I was in Houston. I had a Starbucks meeting with a girl for the business to get her to sign up for one of our memberships there, and then I went to a networking event for the business with two potential clients. That's already a write off because I'm writing off the car extended and the $135 hotel that I paid for. So it's everything's already there. And it doesn't have to be a
yeah,
healthcare business. That's what I tell people. It doesn't have to be healthcare related business. It could be just
yeah,
anything like this. This business is a network marketing business for a legal company.
exactly.
So
Wow.
that's what I
Yeah.
do.
Wait, so okay, let's go into all these businesses and then we'll go into some other topics. Tell me all the businesses that you currently own, right? You're 1099 employee, that's the first one.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
go in depth with all of them. Just want to know some more
So
about them.
yeah, so first I'm a 1099 employee as a travel doctor. So I work in through hospitals through my business entity, through my business name. And then I do wellness consultant. I'm currently working on becoming specialized in culinary medicine. So I currently work with like busy professionals and helping them manage things like their stress levels, bloating, fatigue, and just allowing them to be more productive through their life. Because when we think of health, we think of just labs, especially us young people, but health is so much more than that. So I help people with that and I put them on a program. So I have a 3-month program for that. And my focus, like I said, is busy professionals, nurses, doctors, travelers, travel workers, because when you travel, you are high risk for health conditions. So I work as a consultant under there. So like a coach. So I don't work as a doctor. It's completely as a coach. And I make people, sign a form because they can get confused like, oh, she's an actual doctor. No, I'm functioning like your coach. I'm not a doctor. So I allow them, explain that to them. If you need to see a primary care doctor, you go to your primary care doctor for this, but I just guide them on a better lifestyle change. And then I also do network marketing for a legal service, and we help business owners and families stay protected. So it's like insurance, health insurance, but for legal matters.
Wow. How did you get into all of this?
Well, the wellness consultant was because my one of the contracts that I did, I was very stressed out, and I was like, how do you manage stress without changing the external? Like you can't change your external, you can't change the amount of patients you have and everything. How do you manage stress? So I started experimenting with the nurses and I would track down what they eat and saw that certain foods had a correlation to stress. Like if you eat like donuts and coffee in the morning, you're more likely to be stressed out through the day than someone who eats an omelet and drinks water. So I was able to study that. I'm like, this is interesting. Let me get into that. So I started studying functional medicine and then I just started. So, and then the legal business, I actually had the membership for real estate because oh my god, there's a lot of crooks in the real estate world and signing
Mm,
contracts. So I got into a bad contract, and I really love the service, and I realized there will be a lot of healthcare providers that will benefit from this because
mm,
we need to know our rights. We need to know how to protect ourselves, especially if we are working under our LLC.
mm. And is this one the one that you said is a network marketing, like health insurance one? Is that one primarily for healthcare workers?
Families,
Mm,
businesses. So we
mm,
protect everybody. So there's
mm,
different memberships, and I make people. I make sure people are signing up for the correct one because there are so many different ones based off what they need, and I show them how to use the service. Because when people think of a lawyer, they think it's something serious, like oh, a crime. Like you need a lawyer for everything. Literally, I
Mhm.
had some issues with Capital One Bank and I got myself a lawyer because when I paid my taxes, Capital One Bank blocked my account. And I was like, why would y'all block my account? And then they blocked it. Something happened, and I got a lawyer for that. I get a lot of contracts reviewed. I'm also a medical director in Maryland, about to be a medical director in Virginia. So when you have all these business opportunities, first of all, I don't have time to be looking for a lawyer and be reviewing all these contracts. So it's nice to just have some things, like have a lawyer that's going to review and do everything for you.
I love that. I love that service. Man. And did you start it yourself or do you have any partners?
I have partners. I met my
Oh,
partner during my travel doctor contract, like at a business
yeah.
hotel. Because when I travel for work, I like to stay at business hotels because there's a lot of opportunity. You meet all types of people all over the world.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
a good for
Yeah.
networking to stay at these type of hotels, especially if you're not paying for it. So
Yeah. So how many hours are you currently putting in as a 1099 employee per week?
so right now I do 2 weeks a month. I did 2 weeks because it kind of varies. It's not consistent. Like last month I only worked 7 days. January,
Mm,
February, I worked 10 days a month, and that was a 12-hour shift. So, like
mm,
120 hours a month, I would say I
yeah. And you said
average.
12-hour shifts?
Yeah,
Uh, Wow. That's
but my
pretty
goal is to
nice.
scale back to 7 days a month. That's all I want to work,
Mm,
just 7 days a month, because I want to focus on my businesses and the other
yeah.
things I'm doing.
Yeah. Now, in terms of like your passion level for each of these things that you've endeavored in, which one would you say you're the most passionate in or about?
Oh my God. So they're all connected because
Mm,
really what my goal is to help physicians, healthcare providers really build a life of freedom and flexibility. I've always
mm,
believed that's what we deserve. Like when we come out of residency, we believe that, oh, I just deserve to make a lot of money. And you see a lot of doctors stuck in this rat race and they don't even know why they're doing it. They don't know why
mm,
they're picking up these shifts. They don't know why they're working so much. But to allow people to have the option to create that life, everything goes together, right? Obviously, you have to learn how to take care of yourself, right? Through wellness consulting, you have to know how to manage your health, especially when you're traveling for work. I mean, your health can just decline very fast. It is not that hard to just let yourself go when traveling. You're traveling to different cities, you're eating whatever, fast food, you're probably not working out, you're stressed out. It's just too much. So they all go together. I'm very
yeah,
passionate about
it
all of
makes
them.
sense.
Yeah.
and and out of these businesses, which one is the most profitable at the moment?
So I would say the wellness consultant.
Mm,
That one's the most profitable. And yeah, but the legal business is really good because there's a passive income component to it and a residual income component. So income that you've made now, you're going to make that income like for forever as long as the member
mm,
has the membership. So it's a really good method because there's three types of income. There's linear income where you're trading your time for money, leveraged income where basically you don't really have to do much work, but you're still making that money. Like other people are working and they're making that money. And residual income is just you get a percentage of that money that you've made over time. So
mm. Yeah, I actually initially I was gonna find it surprising because I thought, you said as a 1099 employee, some of these doctors can make what, like upwards of $500,000 a year.
they can
So
make
if your other
600.
businesses are producing more, you're
Mhm.
doing really well right now.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why I
Okay.
want to scale back. I want to start
Yeah.
scaling back because you need time. When you work in a hospital, hospitals be draining you. You get off work, you
Yeah.
don't want to do nothing. It's so tiring. It takes
Mm.
up a lot of time. So you have to make
So,
sacrifices. You have to want to invest into your future.
so what does the typical hourly rate look like for a physician who's working in internal medicine and is doing a 1099?
So it's around 200. Now
Wow.
its base is 200, so you can go above that depending on the situation. And that's what I try to educate physicians on because I'm in Houston now for my contract, and I know physicians making way less than me in Nebraska. I'm like, if you're out in Nebraska and in middle of nowhere, population 900, you should be making more than me. But I think a
Mm,
lot of physicians just don't know their worth or their value. So the market is insane. The travel doctor market is insane because a lot of doctors, they get scared when they don't have a contract and they just take the lowest contract because the local agency is against you. They just want to they make money off of you. So the lower rate they give you, if they say 180 an hour, they're going to make that money off you. So your goal is to learn to negotiate and know that, okay, for internal medicine, I'm starting at 200, and you go up depending on the conditions of the contract, like open ICU, procedures, night shift, patient load. All these things change how much you make, but a lot of doctors are just taking anything. So
That kind of sounds very similar to what happens in nursing as well,
yeah,
especially with travel nursing. It's since COVID, obviously, the rates have gone down for travel nurses. So a lot of the travel nurses who used to be making, let's say, I don't know, 150, 140, $150 an hour back then, are probably making closer to like $100 an hour now, maybe less. It depends where you are. Some nurses are probably making like $80 an hour as travel nurses, where they should really be making more because
yeah,
um, travel nurses who are not 1099 employees have to duplicate their expenses, right? So it kind of doesn't make sense for them to take such a low offer when they have to duplicate their expenses and they're not a 1099 employee, right? Because they end up accepting those low rates, then it
yes.
affects
Oh
the
my God,
entire profession, right? So I'm guessing
yeah.
that happens with you guys too.
It's bad. It's
Mm,
really bad for us, especially our profession, because when you're in medicine and you're not really specialized,
mhm,
they tend to lowball you because a lot of people are doing it. Like a lot of people aren't doing travel cardiology. A lot of people aren't doing travel urology, right? So they're going to pay top dollar to get you out there. When you have a lot of these doctors just wanting to do it, everybody wanted to do it. It brings it brings the value down. So I mean, I've been lucky to be getting my rates greater than 200, but it's tough. It's tough to be in the market with doctors who just don't value. Like they would try to lowball you. They'll tell you, "Oh, we have doctors taking 170. We already have 175 doctors taking 170." And what is your first instinct? I'm scared. What if I lose this job? What is that? You're gonna. They play all these
yeah.
manipulative games on doctors.
Yeah. And how would you um how is the sentiment with like the doctors that are the W-2 employees towards the travel doctors? Have you noticed any difference in the way that they treat you travel doctors?
No, they actually treat us well, but
Mm,
yeah, they treat us well. I think they treat the W-2 worse because they got to stay there, and the 1099 can just leave. You could just leave, literally, give them a 30-day notice and just be out. So
oh no, but what I mean is the employees themselves. Because like I know with the nurse in the nursing profession, the nurses who work for the hospitals as W-2 employees, when they see a travel nurse come in who's
really,
making sometimes double their rate, they're not treated well in the units that they work in by the staff that works there because of that, because they know
oh,
that these nurses are making a lot more than them.
oh no, the doctors be happy because you coming in there to help. So you
That's
relieving
the way
them.
I feel.
They
Exactly.
be texting me. We appreciate you.
Mhm,
Like they just treat me really well. They treat you really because
mhm,
they appreciate you helping. So for them, it's like, all right, well, you're helping.
yeah.
You're helping us. So
Has there ever been a situation where, as a 1099 employee, you came into work and you were like, what have I got myself into? In terms of like the stress level, like, what is this? What am I doing? And why did I choose this? Have you ever had those thoughts to yourself before?
I walked away from 2 contracts like that because first of all, these companies are not honest. They lie just to get you there. They're going to tell you the minimum. And then you get there and then you're like, whoa, 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 this is unsafe. Like one of the contracts that I just stopped going to, I didn't schedule any more shifts. The first time I worked there was like 13 patients. I'm like, okay, this is doable. 13 patients, open ICU. Um, it was another physician there. And then one day, I was the only doctor. The census got up to 25. I was stressed out. I was like, and it got to a point where I was just like, this is unsafe. I can't work at this contract. So I tried to renegotiate the terms of my contract. Like there has to be another doctor there. I can't see this many patients for this type of contract because you're doing admissions, you're following ICU patients. I said it doesn't make sense, and they didn't want to renegotiate the terms. They just go find another doctor who will take it. So it's one of those things I tell doctors like doing 1099 locums travel doctor is just more than getting contracts. You got to know when to walk away too. You got to know because it takes that one mistake and your license is gone. And they don't care. They don't care. They'll find another doctor. Like you get a lawsuit, it takes one time. So when you know you're in a situation where it's unsafe, where they're asking you to do all this unsafe. You're coming there to help, not to do get it. That they some of them, they were trying to do a 2-for-1 deal. They was trying to like get me to do the work of two doctors in one. I
Mm,
said no, because the
mm,
pay didn't go up. I'm like, from 13 to 25 patients, you would expect your pay to go up. Nothing went up. So
wow, wow.
yeah,
So
and that's
from
true.
the colleagues you've spoken, the colleagues you've spoken to, and the doctors that you know, are many of them in like massive amounts of debt, or do you feel like doctors have gotten their debt under control and they're responsible with their income?
It really depends. Like
Mm,
some doctors, they're paying back their debt aggressively through 1099 contracting. So what they're doing is they're working a lot and they're just paying off massive amounts, chunks at a time.
mm,
But there's a trade-off to that because in order you got to work a lot, and like I said, the burnout and the stress, it ends up not being worth it. For me, I believe in making income other ways to pay for those student loans. But yeah, I mean, I think they're paying for it, but then you got a lifestyle too that you want to pay for also, and that can be expensive, like a Lamborghini, $1 million home. So it starts to add up.
yeah. And um, now, okay, so where do you see yourself with the 1099 job in the next like 2 or 3 years? Do you feel like you're going to reduce your hours to the point where it just won't make any more sense for you to continue doing it?
Yeah, I mean, to keep your license active,
Mm,
you want to be at
mm,
least working 2 to 3 times a month. Because after that, it just your license, you're not active, you're not working. So I just want to I just want to become work optional. Like I want to work because I want to work, just to keep my
mm,
license active because I feel like it, and just to travel and scale. Because traveling is good for me because I get to promote my business and scale in different cities. So to me, it's a plus, and they pay for it. But my goal is to, because it gets old after a while. If I tell people this, it's like the travel doctor thing. It gets old. It gets old after a while. You're gonna get tired of it, and you're just gonna want stability. You just want to be home and you don't want to be forced to be traveling. A lot of doctors are forcing themselves to travel because they didn't prepare ahead of time. They don't really have anything else they're doing or have any other streams of income.
mm. I
So
see. And what are the hardest things you would say are for you when it comes to your 1099 job? What is it? What is the most challenging thing that you have to deal with?
taking care of myself because
Mm,
the health, like the burnout is high when you're traveling for work. Whether you're a flight attendant, travel nurse, or pilot, the burnout is high, and prioritize your health, showing up at the gym, eating the right foods. I feel like that's the hardest part.
mm,
Financially, I'm good with saving. It's not like some people, their contract ends, they're out of work, and because they live paycheck to paycheck, they don't have, and that's why they take the low contracts because it's like at that point, I don't have time. I can't leverage myself. But I'll say that's the most stressful part is your health. It's lonely. It's
mm.
isolating. It gets
And
lonely.
yeah, and how long are these contracts for? Do you guys have do you sign a contract for like 2, 3 months, 6 months? How long is it?
I mean, it varies. You could do a full time 1099, full time W-2 travel. I do PRNs. Like when
Mm,
it ends, and then God would direct me to the right one. So I've just been doing PRNs, which is a little more risky, but I like it personally for my schedule.
mm,
But there is full time where you can sign for like a year or 2 years.
I see. And I mentioned, well, you mentioned at the beginning how your brother works in I kind of want to dive into that topic just a little bit before we end this call because I had a conversation with a resident. First of all, she was a nurse and now she's doing her residency. She went through medical school, is doing her residency, and she wants to become a radiologist. And I think the conversation that I'd like to have is where do you see medicine and the direction medicine is going as it relates to AI? Do you think certain specialties in medicine are going to be replaced by AI? And if
Mhm.
so, which specialties are more likely to be replaced?
I think radiology.
Mm,
Radiology is the first one. AI will be able to read a lot of scans and just tell us what it is. And they may still need radiologists, but what they're going to do is they're going to get a they're going to get a radiologist to like check off on it. So they may not need as many radiologists. Um, and then I think like primary care, because I mean I use AI. Sometimes I use ChatGPT and I'm like, oh my God, like You literally put it in there and it gives you everything, gives you the whole I'm like, this is insane. And it'd be accurate too. So I think primary care is definitely a specialty that patients are using it. Like they coming into the hospital, chat GB, like they will bring up the craziest the most rare disease and ask me, do they have it? I'm like, what? No. Like, how do you know about and be telling me what to order? Okay, you ordered it. I'm like, how do they know? So maybe in the future, patients will be able to just go in and just order their own tests. And then
Yeah.
the AI will read for them. So I
Mm,
think those two specialties, especially there's a big shortage of primary care doctors. So I'm sure they're going to find a way to like use AI to to help with that.
mm. Did they ever include that in your curriculum in medical school? Anything about AI and technology?
Because that was back in the day.
Yeah.
I feel old, but
Wow.
2015, yeah.
Yeah.
Like they have
Man.
something now where I saw an ER doctor where he goes to the patient's room and presses this button, and it records their whole conversation. And he goes to his computer, his whole note is done,
Yeah.
his whole diagnose. It tells him the diagnosis, everything with what to do next. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah, actually at work, I've worked in several hospitals now where this happens. The physicians will just speak into the microphone
Mhm,
while as they're writing their note, and then the program, I don't know if it's Chat GPT, will reformat their notes and make it
mhm,
look more presentable, and it adds more depth to it also.
yeah,
Um,
and protect them
and
legally too.
Yes, exactly. It's insane how far AI has gone, even in the last 3 years.
Mhm,
Because I could have never imagined we'd be at a point right now where a lot of our business can just be delegated to AI, right?
mhm,
Like, I'll give you an example. For me, like I'm building this app, and there's when you're building an app, there's this thing called the back end and the front
mhm,
end. The back
mhm,
end is all the code that makes up the logic behind what you see on the screen. So like if you look at your an app like TikTok and you're clicking on things, you're liking some of the videos, you're swiping, in order to see that information, you need to feed the app the data in the backend, right? So let's say, for example, somebody shows you or leaves a comment, right? That comment has to be stored in a database. So I'm building this app, and in order to get all of the data that we're going to need to be displayed in the front end that you can see, I actually, at the beginning, I just used, first, I tried to learn how to write code in Python. And I did that for about 6 months or so, where I got a private tutor who helped me. So I kind of
mhm,
understood it a little bit, enough to the point where now I go to Claude or ChatGPT and I'll feed the code that I've written and I'll ask it to improve it and tell me what areas I've messed up with or messed up in, and what features they think I should add to my code, and it
mhm,
does it for me. So now I started with a let's say a script, which is a Python code of
mhm,
about, I think, maybe 400 or 500 lines of code,
mhm,
right? So like it's almost like looking at a document, and that document has 400 lines. Now with the usage of ChatGPT and a developer that I've also paid in India, I've got over 3,000 lines of code, which includes information like, let's say you want to know the demographics of the city
mhm,
that you might want to move to as a nurse. You want to know like the income levels. You want to know the education level, the age
mhm,
makeup in that city, or you want to know the ethnicity, the races, and all these things, as well as like the average temperature in that city, or you want to know the school grades, or maybe you want to know what licensing requirements there are for nurses. Those things I use ChatGPT to create, and my developer in India. You don't have
yeah,
to be that knowledgeable about these things. You just have to like keep asking it questions. If you mess
yeah.
up, tell it you messed up and
It's
ask it how to fix
amazing.
it.
It's
It's
amazing. Like I use it for
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's but you know what? There is also like an issue with AI because there's students out there, especially in like nursing school, medical school, who are using Chat GPT to write their papers. And I've heard stories of many of them failing out of the program or getting flunked out of the program because the teachers and the professors have found out that they were using AI to develop their or write their essays and develop their projects and things like that. So You got to be really careful with how you use it too.
Yeah, you gotta. Some people use it for therapy. There's even an AI app where you have like a boyfriend, and like and
What?
make you could put a face. Yeah, you could put a face. Like someone can take your face and put it on the avatar,
Oh
and it'd
my
be talking to
God.
them.
That is crazy. Okay, so all right, now I have viewers out there who may be interested in getting into your line of work. Do you have social media account that they can reach, a website, or anything, any way that they can contact you if they're interested in speaking with you?
Yeah, so they can reach out to my Instagram. It's Oreokan, OREOKANN. And my website is ohanehealth.com. So that's for my wellness consulting. And they can reach out to me there. And then my email is Oyinkan, OYINKAN 2012 at yahoo.com.
If you like this video, subscribe to our channel and click right here to watch my interview with Lily, a nurse who's becoming a doctor and could earn over $1 million a year once she opens up her own practice.